Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Hey, it is Epidose 2 of the Go Gonzilla.
Yes, indeed.
And hopefully this time we have the technical kinks worked out. As much as I enjoyed seeing Tim's lovely face last time, I think it was deemed important that we at least contrast it with my ugly mug during this video roarcast of some sort. So I think it's working. It's switching. Is it switching?
We shall see. Did it switch?
Yeah, it's switching.
Okay.
I'd like to think that the people from Planet X are involved with the technical gibberish from last week, but we'll get to that here in a second. I guess let's get down to it. We had 3 more movies last week to watch. Oh wait, since we're gonna talk about it, I gotta crack open my Monster.
Monster energy drink.
Yeah, it seems apt. I also got the red one because I'm wearing a red shirt. It's not a commercial. I'm drinking this right now.
I care it's not the red sleepy liquid that they have on that island.
Oh, brother. I wish, man. It'll knock me out at night. It beats the nighttime Alka-Seltzer. That stuff will knock you out. Yeah, so it is, we have 3 more movies. We have, last week we did Godzilla, or Ghidorah. We did,
Godzilla raids again.
And then we did King Kong versus Godzilla, and we talked about how it was a turning point in the franchise. These last 3 movies,
They're different turning points.
they pretty much take it to the extreme. I think what happened was they saw the moderate success with one monster versus another, where they teased it in Godzilla Raids Again. It really banked some money in King Kong versus Godzilla, and I think they realized, King Kong was its own mythology before Godzilla was around. It was like, let's put 2 mythologies together. But these set of 3 movies, I think they realize not only can they create their own mythologies, but also that they can go batshit insane with the kind of mythology creation that they make.
There's a lot of non-questioning by authorities in these films. It's just like blind acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
He agrees.
Yes. Rawr. So what are the 3 movies? This week, what is it?
Godzilla versus Mothra, or Godzilla versus the Thing, depending where you look. The next one, I believe, was Godzilla versus the Three-Headed Monster, or Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
It's Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, also known as
Monster Zero, which was the 3rd movie. Godzilla versus Monster Zero.
Or Invasion of Astro Monster, depending on where you're from.
Yes.
And I'll have to say, for some of these, there were a couple of English versions of it, and I opted to go for the straight Japanese one. The one that specifically I really did was Invasion of Astro Monster, or the Great Monster War, or whatever other title.
Did you know Stan's subtitles too?
No. I don't know Japanese, so.
Well, I had a problem with one of mine. I got to Astro Monster.
Was it the fan sub? Was it a fan subtitle?
No, it was not a fan sub. It was pure Japanese with nothing.
Oh.
And I really wanted to know what was going on with the convoluted secondary plot. So I was able to find it. It's included in Amazon Prime.
Hey, well, there you go. So not only can you purchase and own these delicious movies, but you can find them online as well. Amazon Prime. I didn't know that they had it. That's pretty
They
cool.
did, and it was the dub version. It was the American dub version. But that did help the story because I couldn't read the overlays and things. And for whatever reason, when I pulled it, there are no subtitles. So I watched it on my Amazon Prime with the dubbing, which I kind of like. I don't mind the subtitles at all, but I like the... There's some fun with the dubbing I enjoy. So.
Well, yeah, and yeah, we'll get to that. But let's first let's talk about Mothra versus Godzilla.
Ah, yes, Mothra.
Mothra. Yes. Okay, so
Mothra.
What is Mothra? Mothra is a moth that's really big, pretty much.
Hence Mothra.
Yeah, I would have never suspected that a flying bug would be like the thing that takes down Godzilla, but it proved it so in this movie.
Yeah, good old. Well, Mothra is kind of the all-knowing, like, linchpin monster, as we'll come to find out. But
it's like the master splinter of monsters.
He can talk to a lot of people and has a lot of superpowers.
She.
Pardon me. She. Mothra. She. My favorite thing from this movie, though, has nothing to do with that. It has to do with there's the goof who everybody yells at through the whole movie, and he's always eating eggs.
Yeah. It's like, oh, boiled, oh.
Before you see, there's a giant egg in Mothra, and he's always eating eggs. It just kills me. It's like the boss at the paper's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, "I'm enjoying this egg." And then he's got like a tray of boiled eggs in front of him, a little carousel. And then later on they come back to him and he's eating a poached egg with a little spoon and a little dish. And then he's like, "Well, if you're so into eggs, why don't you go out to the beach and cover the giant monster egg?" He's like, "Okay." And then they catch up to him on the beach and he comes out of his tent and he's eating a fried egg out of the frying pan. So apparently all that guy does is eat eggs. And that was...
Well, you know, it's healthy. It's got good cholesterol, protein. You know, it is it's healthier probably than this Monster Energy drink I'm drinking. No, it's not a commercial.
But that was my favorite thing, is that every time they catch up to this guy, he's eating an egg. And it's just like, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm having an egg."
I'm surprised that was the one thing that jumped out. I mean, there's...
I like that. That was because every time they'd say, "Well, go watch the monster egg," he'd kind of do like the googly eyes, like, "Wow!" Look at the egg, like, "Oh no, is this a monster egg? How long would it take to boil it?" He's like, "It takes 7 minutes to boil this size egg, so what? 7 million minutes?"
Oh man! So this movie also established it was It gets a little worse in these set of movies. I think hopefully we will redeem ourselves later on, but it took about 40 minutes in before we saw Godzilla on this one.
I have been marking when he appears.
It's for an hour-and-a-half movie, relatively. I mean, these run about an hour and a half to close.
They cram a lot in like the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, they pretty much.
I started watching the clock. I'm like, they need to get to this battle because my time's almost up on this movie. But I had the first Godzilla roar about 32 minutes in.
Yeah. So like, it's you gotta get used to it because they gotta establish some kind of goofy story for the human.
Always a secondary story that really doesn't have a lot to do with the end of the movie.
Yeah. Well, and in this case, the story. Oh, what was it?
There's the egg shows up and the great entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He shows up and he buys the egg from no one, and he's gonna sell tickets and stuff to it. And he's a dick. So,
yes, he is a Mayor Dioc.
I even have that underlined. It says great entrepreneur, buys egg, dick. That's what it says.
So yeah. So where these stories always have a little hand in, and they started out having a hand in some serious social commentary, and entrepreneurism
It's a little away from that.
in corporate business was the finger that they were shaking at in this one, and they I don't know. It established, and it also kind of established the fact that Godzilla somehow indirectly affects all this stuff too. Yeah.
This was a little looser connection than before, but the other little side stories is a reporter and a photo girl.
Yeah.
They kind of like try to shoehorn in a little romance kind of thing, as much as romantic as the Japanese get in their movies, which isn't much.
Yeah, I mean, the side stories always throw away. You just want enough to where it could set the stage for the fight. And they did all right, I think, for the fights on this one.
This would also mark the introduction of the two miniature girls who are kind of like Mothra's protectors or communicators.
Yeah, and they're the only ones. They're like Thumbelina times two. They're the only ones that are like 2 or 3 inches tall. And there's 2 of them. They're twins. They talk at the same time.
But they alternate singing.
And everybody else on the island that they come from is regular size. So it's like, how did they even show up? What kind of mystic power do they have? Because I think that's what they kind of introduce is kind of the mystic magic, more of a magic around this monster motif that they're doing.
Well, the other kicker is starts off the trend of no one questioning bizarre shit like 2 miniature women talking through the forest.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not like, whoa, these little girls, but they're not like, we got to study them. It's just like, okay, what do you have to say? Well, we'd like to talk to you about this. And conveniently, everyone seems to find a little 3-door box that has like a sofa in it for them.
I know, right? It's like,
let me get my miniature person box.
Is that a Japanese tradition we don't have over here in America?
Well, I've got a 3-person box. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Mine's called the basement. I only have 2 in right now.
But the guy, just a note, the guy's company is called Happy Enterprises. Buys it, and I have a note underneath that says, "Where is Godzilla?" ?
Pretty much. Yeah, it takes some time. Yeah, so they somehow they're like, don't mess with this egg. Don't deal with the egg. Boobity bee boo. Finally, the girls like call Mothra on over, and I think Mothra attacks and protects Godzilla because the girls convince Godzilla because all they gotta do is sing to the bug, and it's like, hey, we're here. So
they summon him by song, or her by song, and then the Happiness Corporation is irradiating the egg to make it hatch, so they have like a business property. But the egg blew over from a storm over on their island. It fell out and floated over to this town. So
yeah, and the 2 business partners ended up like at each other's throat too. Again with the commentary.
Well,
one guy beats the hell out of this other guy. I mean, like knuckle sandwich to the face and blood.
That's a pretty nasty fight for this kind of movie. Like he bashed the guy's mouth in, and then the guy shot him. But he basically got the guy to sell him his shares, and he basically left him broke. And the manager, who was like the entrepreneur guy, who's a dick, gets ripped off, and he's like he beats the crap out of the business owner.
And then conveniently Godzilla shows up.
Well, they have to, and apparently the new trend is if you're the bad guy, you're going to die in like the rubble falling when Godzilla finally gets there.
Exactly, right? I mean, that gets established and used again.
If you're a dick, you're probably going to like try to run away at the last second, and you'll be crushed by something.
If you're a dick, don't go near a mountain. That's a good
rule. Spend a lot of time near these mountains. I have a note that when Godzilla comes up out of the dirt in this one,
it's classic. It starts the line, right?
It's like he comes up out of the dirt, and it's like, okay, I just put in quotes, "Quit burying me. I'm pissed." So it's like, no wonder he's trampling everything. You guys keep burying this poor giant lizard.
No, and then the line. There's it happens. They both like go up and they go, "It's Godzilla!"
Oh, well, there you go. He's coming out of the dirt, and then I did notice in this his fire breath has improved a little bit.
His fire. We'll talk about that because I think it kind of was up and down and then came back up for these three movies.
It did drop off in one of them, but
yeah. So like, what did the reporter guy find to like pinpoint where Godzilla was? It looked like a radioactive Godzilla turd, is what I think he found.
Yeah, I have that as the turd is radioactive is my note.
It's like they found Godzilla poop, and that's how they tracked down Godzilla. And it was
wild animals. It's from their scat.
Yes, exactly. Hey, I just had a breakfast taco this morning that had a waffle, a fried egg, and bacon, and a piece of chicken in it. So
that's probably a radioactive turd ready to happen.
It's gonna be ground zero here later on, if you know what I'm talking about.
Godzilla.
Oh man, yeah. What am I gonna sound like in the bathroom, Tim? That'll be coming out of my ass. So that's how they find Godzilla. Godzilla wakes up. He's pissed.
A little bit of that.
And he goes on a rampage, of course.
Sometimes I don't know that he's on a rampage so as much. He's just trying to get his bearings. He's buried underground. He's just walking around trying to figure out stuff, and there's a city in the way, and they're always shooting at him. Which by now they should know the tanks shooting at him do nothing.
It's kind of like a bug flying around. I guess if you get annoyed enough with that, you'd probably be pretty pissed off and want to squish it.
But they do all these things. It's like, okay, send in the tanks. That's not going to work. Shoot them with guns. That's not going to work. Let's try electrocuting them. That doesn't work. You've established this does not work. It just makes him angrier. This time they called in the USA.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they wanted some frontier missiles. Because they're still very hesitant to use any nuclear weapon. Deservedly so. But they have these frontier missiles that let's see if it's going to stop them. And I have a mark that frontier missiles might work. No, they won't. So.
Well, and they're like,
first plan always fails.
Hey, Americans, since you're so good at blowing cities up, why don't you come help us out?
Those big ones again.
Exactly. That was a backhanded compliment, I think.
Yeah, it's like, well, they got some missiles to shoot. Let's let them do it. Let's see. Give him right. Mothra is apparently, I have Mothra as sentient, but Mothra is kind of all-knowing.
Well, and Mothra is kind of finicky too. They always say they got to convince Mothra of doing help. But Mothra always eventually ends up doing it. So I think Mothra's finicky. I mean,
apparently, you just have to ask him via song, and he's all for it. So, yeah. Or she's all for it. Excuse me, I keep saying it's he. It's a her.
Yeah. So Godzilla. I mean, so all the reporter story, the business guys, it's like throwaway.
He's trying to make a buck off the egg. The egg's gonna hatch. All shit breaks loose. And
the cool thing is the fight. The fight was kind of cool, and we get to see good use of Godzilla's radioactive breath.
He was jazzed up with his breath in this one. So.
And he blasts Mothra's face, and Mothra dies. But like what they've established already in Godzilla movies is like another rebirth of the same creature. It gets to have that name, gets to carry that mantle. But they threw us for a swerve. Instead of like the egg hatching one, like larvae or whatever for Mothra, like two of them show up.
Two of them come out of the egg, and I think that threw me is I figured it'd be the moth with the wings and stuff. It's just two larvae, and they get out, scoot around all over the island. I'm like, how are those going to beat Godzilla? Well,
yeah. So they basically silk web them to death, pretty much.
In the midst of there, the second option for the Japanese is to use fake lightning on Godzilla. I also have a note on that use of fake lightning probably won't work either.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
That doesn't work. So Mothra fights him. They convince Mothra to fight, and then she turns into two more. She dies. Two more Mothras come out and little larva slugs, and they shoot him with webbing.
Yeah.
That really ticks him off.
Pretty much, he just dunks into the sea, and the sea. Another thing you'll see, well, SEE about the SEA is it's the great equalizer.
Fall in the ocean and you're a giant monster. That's it. Done.
If you want to like retcon, if you want to like explain away stuff, like you're talking about the military. If you just want to wave your hand over and say it's over now, just have them fall into the sea and don't show any of the fighting. It's happened and it'll happen again, and that's what happened this time. He's like, Godzilla's like, silk, kersploosh, and then it's the end. That's the end of the movie. So
they do all their credits at the beginning of the movie. So like as soon as he hits the water, it's like,
I like that. I hate like 3 minutes. I want to. It's kind of like you go out on a high note, right?
Yeah, that's the end.
Like the 5-minute like end credits after the movie, because A, nobody stays to watch them, and B, like especially with these Marvel movies nowadays, you get the whole you have to stay to the end because there's some really cool Easter egg at the end. Ooh, you know,
not a Mothra egg.
Exactly, right? So I'm done. I'd rather have all the credits at the beginning, so then you could just be like the end and then cut it off and then drive home safely, everybody.
I had a note on this one. It said there's a lot of plots to follow in this, and then I wrote down plot 1, plot 2, plot 3, and I just have lines through them as they end during the movie. That's over, plot 3, and then it said Godzilla's 2-0 when he first kills Mothra. Then it's like plan B or C is Electronet by the humans. Doesn't work. Nope. Plan D, run away.
Exactly.
That was it, and then they cocoon him, and the new Mothras cocoon Godzilla, throw him in the ocean. Godzilla now has a score of 2-1 against his enemies.
Yeah, and one thing to point out, they call Godzilla King of the Monsters, but, I mean, he had to take some losses to work his way to the top. It's not like boxing.
Kind of a half loss, because he really did beat Mothra once.
It's almost like professional wrestling, which... We'll get toward, once we get toward some of the 90s Godzilla stuff, we'll talk about some of the kaiju battle royale stuff that seems only on TV, but anyway, that's foreshadowing.
So then that ends, and you are into, I won't get this title right.
Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. So, this
That's just me.
So Ghidorah, three-headed monster, is a slightly different take, I think.
Ghidorah is not something to mess around with. I'll tell you that.
They build him up like he's something you don't mess around with. That's what I like too.
You got to team up.
Yeah.
That's what this one taught me, is you got to team up. Let's see what else I had. General plot points: temperature's hot on Earth. There's a lot of shooting stars. The light brainwashes a princess from a made-up country that I'd never heard of.
Yeah, so this goes to what I was talking a little when we started out talking about the mysticism of it. Now, instead of like the mystic, because the last two movies, like, you know, Kong Island and natives, and it's a beast that lives on an island, and then
all kind of science-based.
Yeah, Mothra, they made up their own like island where these magical tiny ladies like sing together and bring a bug out, and it's all like fantasy and mysticism and whatnot. With this, they're just like, we're going to space, you know, it's space from another dimension, and they're just like, hey, it's space.
We can make up whatever we want.
Pretty much, yeah.
So this little island has this princess. There's some kind of power struggle. That's the little side plot. Doesn't really.
Another government like intrigue thing.
So this little principality has this lady who's going to take over as queen, but whoever's in charge there doesn't want it, so he sends this evil sunglasses wearing villain to go make sure they try to blow up her plane, but she gets saved by the shooting stars and gets possessed by a Venusians, excuse me. Venetian would be from Venice. A Venusian. And let's see. She gets taken over. Everybody's talking about how weird the temperature is, and I just put a note that says dollars, donuts, some kind of giant monster's coming.
Yeah.
And probably
there's a monster.
Well, there's something weird going on. Well, just go ahead and get your tanks and crap out, because one monster's coming, and then somehow Godzilla's going to wake up.
So the lady gets all whacked out and starts predicting the end of the world.
Puts on she gets some hobo clothes, and she goes out to the crowds and tells everybody that they gotta be forewarned that there's great danger coming. And they also they do they show a Japanese game show, talk show, where they do Where Are They Now, and they bring out these little kids, and they wanted to see Mothra. Instead, they bring out the twin girls again, conveniently in their little 3-person box.
Yeah, who's their agent?
They agree to go on TV. No one questions it. They're like, oh, here they are, the 2 girls. They're going to hang out for a while? Sure. And
man, dude, I'd love to see them on Double Dare and take the physical challenge.
Well, it's kind of like it's like a goofy little show, like a variety show, and the 2 hosts get taking digs at each other, and one guy's calling the other guy short. And it's actually pretty good. The kids were like, well, I want to see Mothra. They're kind of being brats, and they're like, well, they started asking about the 2 larvae from the last movie. One of them died, and then one of them's doing fine. And this is where it gets weird. They're like, we want to see Mothra, and they're like, we can't bring Mothra, but if you close your eyes, we'll sing a song, and then you can see her. And so they go.
Close your eyes and. We've all taken mushrooms under the seats of your chairs in the audience. Go ahead and take those, and then we'll sing the song, and you can see Mothra on another island.
Here's a little bit of their song just for fun. Hang on.
It looks like they're mocking them.
Yeah.
Swing, bada, 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 swing, bada.
Let's look for happiness at sweet old island. Where's the other? Far away that sky, and they show the natives all bowing to the larva. And there's like a weird sad part to the song. That doesn't really make any sense, but why the happiness is crying. Anyway, it goes on for a while. But Mothra's kind of into it, so... Hey, I didn't say keep going. Uh-oh. Hey. There we go. Anyway, Mothra's like swaying back and forth to that song and getting all into it.
Yeah. Oh, and it's not the flying version. It's still the larvae, which... It's
a little bit larger larva, and it's got a different kind of face, but it's not flying yet.
That bothered me about it. I'm wondering when the actual, like flight-ready Mothra shows back up, because that's where, like, some crazy stuff happens.
I would guess in about 2 to 4 movies.
Probably, yeah. So while Mothra is being all celebrity worshipped, the lady comes and starts predicting the return of Godzilla, which happens, and the ladies didn't go on the ship. That's how they kind of met. But also, she predicted the return of Rodan. Rodan actually started out separately from a Godzilla movie. There was a movie called Rodan that was made in like 1956, and the story revolved around these unearthed, awoken, prehistoric monster birds, via a mining operation, and then they somehow both die. They dive into a crater of a volcano. Like one gets bombarded and just falls in and is presumed dead. The other one, trying to rescue, flies in and gets buried alive. So that Rodan awakes in this movie, and it's another crossover. So Rodan awakes, and then Godzilla awakes and just f's up ship in the water. So but they don't really explain
why Godzilla woke up.
Yeah.
He kind of wakes up and cooks. First thing he does when he gets up is he's going to breathe fire on something.
Yeah, he probably got all that silk off of him, and he's ready to just tear some stuff up,
And there's another nice scene in this. There's a volcano pit where there's another something going on, and these people are all taking pictures and being touristy.
And that guy loses his hat in there, and then the guy is bartering, but he's losing, obviously.
Well, he starts at 500 yen, and then he's 300, 200 yen, 200 yen. He barters himself down.
Yeah, he's so aggressive, too. He's ready to punch the guy, and the guy's not saying a word.
And he's like, okay, go ahead and get my hat. And so dumbass climbs down the crater.
And that's when Rodan wakes up. Yeah.
And that's when he wakes up, and it's the rule is, don't go after a hat in a volcano crater.
Yeah, because
if there's not a Rodan, it's still a volcano.
Yeah.
The hat can't be worth that much. I mean, I know it's the 60s, but come on.
Yeah.
He was pretty ticked that he lost his hat, but...
So, what's also great about this movie is also establishes the fact that these monsters can communicate with each other. It gets a little more ridiculous down the road, and we'll laugh at that later, but this time, they did it pretty smartly. So the lady obviously predicted these two things, and now she's predicting Ghidorah, which these guys on an expedition were going to see. It's human backstory. It's whatever. But the
giant meteorite that he's going to hatch out of, basically.
Yeah, basically a meteor crashes, they go investigate, and the meteorite is actually an egg, and Ghidorah pops out of it in this crazy Technicolor pencil drawing transformation.
A lot of animation and big giant suits.
Yes. So that's kind of how Ghidorah shows up.
And just for the record, 39 minutes in before Godzilla showed up.
Yes.
48 minutes for King Ghidorah and an hour and 2 minutes for Mothra to really kind of get rolling.
Yeah. So crazy lady. So the story of Venusians, it's another dimension. Somehow they fall through. That's how the meteor fell through. And Venusians were actually here on Earth first, and humans had it. But they grew out of it. But there's some connection between Venusians and humans the way they are today that you could be zapped into having those kind of extra superpowers that humans lost or Venusians lost. And that explains this lady's crazy-ass future prediction stuff.
The Venusians could see the future. They left their planet because Ghidorah destroyed it, and then they came to Earth, and they were there 5,000 years, and they interbreeded with the people, and they slowly lost their ability to see the future, except for apparently a few people who hung on. And
yes. So the moral of the story is that if you have mystical, magical powers, don't inbreed. So
you'll lose them.
Yes, that's right. Just like the tree stump for the family tree. If you inbreed, you're gonna lose all your cool powers. So.
Then. Again, that's when they bring up, they're like, we're going to have to use nuclear bombs. And they're like, nope, not doing it. Which is, again, fair. And this is where I think we're getting to the part where they communicate. Godzilla and Rodan are whomping the crap out of each other.
Yeah, it's awesome. They meet up, and then they just start fighting because that's what monsters do. They got beasts with each other. And then the Venusian lady convinces the infant island twin girls that there is a problem and that you need to do something about it. And of course, the infant twin girls are like, "Hey, I don't know. We got to convince Mothra first. Mothra might not want to do it." A minute of singing, and Mothra's bugging into the water, going to save the day. Because Mothra is a good monster. There's no evil.
No, Mothra will help if you're nice to their people and
ask nicely.
Willy water bugs across the ocean. Apparently, also travel time in these movies is just nil because you can go from.
You'll see that in the next movie too.
Place, but Willy Waterbug goes over to the mainland where Rodan and Godzilla are just having a good old throwdown. A lot of rock kicking and tail action.
That's right. And Mothra shows up and just like, oh, they also told us that the other Mothra died. They just retconned the two bug. Wherever we are, they're just like, oh yeah, the other one sadly died, but this one's still alive.
Still a larva though, and she'll talk to the other monsters and see if she can't convince them to team up against this three-headed, super beast.
Mm-hmm. So Mothra's like, ee! And of course the infant island twins are there conveniently enough to transform. So they're just pretty much like, Rodan and Godzilla's like, listen, what reason do we have to save humans since they've just been giving us beef the whole time we've been around?
Godzilla actually said they bullied me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they got a good point. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
but then they had to agree not to keep fighting each other.
And they're like, no. And they're like, make him
kind of shake their heads no and growl.
Exactly. So Mothra is finally the heck with it. I'm gonna go fight myself, and not like a half minute of fighting, because King Ghidorah is like on the other side of the mountain, pretty much, conveniently enough.
And he can spit lightning out of his three heads, and it's just nuts.
Yeah, he's a badass. And of course, Mothra shows up and gets blasted by those, and just like pops into the air, just pew a couple times. And right around the second or third time, Godzilla's like, okay, I'm going to fight, and starts running and starts fighting. And it was like, that's it,
And then they hit Mothra. That's terrible. I'm going to go ahead and go over and fight. And as they both go start kind of doing, they just hit it up hard. Godzilla goes for the tails in the back, the birds flying by and clawing his eyes.
It's pretty good fighting.
It's pretty good. And then meanwhile, Mothra kind of sneaks around and starts hitting him with the webbing a little bit here and there, kind of. They just kind of whip him around for a while. Three-headed monster doesn't hold up for a while against the trio. So.
Yeah, so they finally learn to work together, I guess.
Sort of.
And what ends up happening? Godzilla holds the double tail of King Ghidorah while Mothra's on the back of Rodan, using the magical web silk again. And they use it.
Picking up people and flying them around to attack, which is cool.
Yeah. So while this is all happening, of course the princess lady gets shot by assassin guy. Oh, but the assassin guys are on the way to kill her, chasing her, right? And all of a sudden some rubble from a mountain gets kicked down and falls right on top of the car.
One of the three monsters got body slammed. Of course, half the mountain collapses and right on top of their car.
Yeah, so the main bad glasses wearing guy survives, and he goes and finds them, and he's pretty much across the ledge, pop, shoots her once, and then another guy, the reporter guy, I think, goes to rescue her, or I don't even know, whoever.
There's a police officer, a reporter, two reporters, and somebody else. But this was the cop who was supposed to be protecting her in the first place. So.
Yeah. So the bad guy shoots the gun out of the cop's hand, and he's getting ready for the final blow. And then, conveniently enough, another rubble shot comes down the mountain and just falls on top of the guy and kills him.
Catches it, falls off the cliff. The end for that guy.
Yes. So it's like, oh, hey, they're all good guys win. So.
So that guy falls off the cliff. The princess remembers who she is, humanly, because the bullet grazed her enough to shock her. And in the meantime, the monsters are up there getting ready to they kind of do this little trio tackle off a cliff into the ocean, which, as we know.
Exactly. It's like Ghidorah gets wet, and it's like, all right, I'm out of here. See ya.
But no one seems concerned that he just flies off.
Well, yeah. Well, what can you do? If you're an outer space creature,
is he supposed to be flying back to space?
What are you gonna follow with an outer space creature?
Well, your two champions, two of your three champions, just fell in the water, which apparently makes them just sink.
Yeah.
And three-headed uglies flying off back to space, presumably, because everybody seems pretty calm.
Yeah, they're like, all right, he's gone. We don't have to worry about him.
Great, and Mothra. Mothra goes back to the island. The end.
Yeah. Yeah. So that leads us into our third movie. Conveniently enough, and you know what? It fooled me too. Movie number 3 is Invasion of Astro Monster or Monster Zero, depending on where you're from.
Yeah, depending on where you're from. And that marks movie 3. One final on that second one. The Mothra and King Ghidorah movies actually did feature actors that crossed over. I mean, that made it through 2 movies. The scientist was the same. The reporter was the same. The photographer was the same. They added in a cop and a sister.
Yeah.
But this one, there's not a cast carryover.
No.
This is Monster Zero, or whatever you'd like to call it, one of its 7 titles.
Yeah. Now they opened up this one with an expedition out to Planet X. And it's an American guy and an Asian guy. And they're going, it's a planet discovered from, this is where the movie here. This movie, they just throw science out the window. They don't even care. Where before they use magic and mysticism to explain wacky stuff away.
They just make up science.
They just make up science on the fly. Like, literally, they're like, we discovered Planet X from Jupiter. How come you couldn't see it before? It's like, it was too dark, our telescopes couldn't pick them up.
But they were getting radio signals, so...
Yes, it was like weird radio waves coming. It's just like, okay.
So anyway, they throw them in a rocket, and they just zip on out past Jupiter, which would take years. And they just, it's like a trip around to the store. They're just kind of like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, so, so they go to Planet X, they show up, and it's obviously inhabited by other people, not the Venusians.
No, these are different people.
I mean, we're talking like Plan 9 from outer space, like crazy elevator things coming up out of the rock, like lids opening up to reveal like crazy Technicolor tunnels, and like doors that would slide open that were like rock, that would be chutes for other rockets and stuff like that. Just crazy science, 60s science fiction stuff.
A lot of that sound, that...
That's pretty good. Have you been practicing that?
I've always been able to do that noise. I just like that noise. You can use it for energy, like an engine, or you can use it for like a tractor beam, or various other things. But it's very popular in the 60s movies.
Yeah. So yeah, they get welcomed into this planet, and in the meantime, our human side story this time has to do with an inventor who's goofy, down on his luck, wears a bow tie, pretty much like any other inventor slash entrepreneur slash science inventor guy, where he's just like dirt poor, bow tie wearing, and a messy lab making things that seemingly aren't worth anything at all.
He makes an annoying noise button.
Yeah,
that's his big find.
Yeah, so he gets called out of the blue. Who's the lady? The pilot's sister is into this guy, and the pilot's sister doesn't like it because he's a science guy himself, and he thinks this inventor guy is kind of a flake. So there's your interplay there. And
he's like an improving father figure.
Yeah, yeah. And then this inventor guy gets a call out of the blue for some toy company that wants to purchase his product. So they're just like, here's
the noisemaker thing, and give him $100,000. It's going to impress the brother. I'm kind of wondering where there's a lot of brother-sister storylines in these movies.
I don't know. Hey, family is a strong bond, and you don't see that a lot.
Well, I think
they're always just two people fall in love. There's not a lot of brother-sister stuff, except maybe that Hansel and Gretel movie that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah. I was just thinking, I'm surprised they just didn't use a disapproving father in these. But I wonder if it has something to do with the Second World War. I wonder if there's a lot of fathers that died.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, they did have bombs dropped on them, so.
Well, I'm just thinking they also fought in the war, so maybe their parents died, their dads died fighting, and then that's the brother's job was to be the man of the family. That's really too deep for this movie, so let's just go past that.
It's a good point, though. It really speaks to the series.
It's happened several times in these now, so.
Yeah, well, that is definitely way more intelligent than what I would have been able to draw out of these movies.
It just puzzled me that there wasn't a disapproving father and there was a disapproving brother, or the brother sisters were always.
There was in the first one.
There was in the first one.
But it was like rival scientist type stuff, so we got that in this movie.
That's true. So they go to the American guy and the Japanese guy land on Planet X. And they get, well, somewhat ambushed, but they're nicely ambushed, and they get taken to the little city below, and basically the planet's being ravaged by Ghidorah. They call Monster Zero.
Yeah, because it's like the first monster that they find, so they
cover everything because they're scientific.
Yeah.
And they kind of want to work a deal with them.
Yeah, they're pretty much like, listen, we want to get Rodan and Godzilla over here if you want to help us do that, and we'll give you the cure to cancer. Now, that's where the American and the Japanese version differs, is that in the Japanese version, and you might have gotten it on Amazon Prime, but the Japanese version was a cure to cancer, but the dubbing was lost in translations, and they're just like the cure for a common disease. So
my dubbing said cure all diseases.
Yeah, so that was one of the differences between the movies. There's a couple others, like they cut out a lot of the city stomping that Godzilla had, and then they added some more sound effects. That crazy Godzilla dance where he was jumping in the air.
after he won it, he and Rodan won their battle with King Ghidorah. He did his happy dance where he does like a.
Oh, he's all like whing.
It was kind of like the safety dance for Godzilla.
It was like a safety dance and the Mario jump put together.
Yeah, and he'd do a little. His foot would. You can't see it on these cameras, but he would do a foot kick too. His leg would come up and his arm would come up, and he'd go, "Yeah, all right, I won."
Yeah,
which is the sad part, in my opinion. But
that's professional wrestling. It really is. So, well, let's get to that point then, right?
So they ask for they want to borrow the two monsters to take down Ghidorah, and they seem like a fair deal. Cure for everything, monsters.
Yeah. Cure everything, get rid of monsters that have plagued this planet.
And so they give them the okay. They won permission before they started taking stuff from the planet. Seems fair. Seems like they're nice. But of course, after they launch their rocket back to Earth, they're like, okay, have a safe journey. And then like he turns off the mic and it's like,
I know, right? It's like if you gotta be brain dead not to figure out it's a double cross. But credit to the writers of the movie, they gave the American guy the suspicion. He's all like, I'm not sure about this guy. Should we really trust him?
And it's not just because he left his mic on when he did his evil laugh either.
Exactly. How do you work this thing? Bloop, 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 bloop.
Was my mic on when I laughed about the evil plan? Oh, no. Okay, it wasn't. It was good. But, so they turns out they've been like living on, they can tell them exactly where Godzilla is, exactly where Rodan is, and the reason they can is because they have their ships underneath the lake.
Yeah, so they blast back to Earth. Doesn't take that long, apparently.
No, it's like a day. It's a day trip.
Yeah, because, who cares about length of time for travel? Let's just move the story along. And they land, and then not like a second after they land, bloop, alien spaceships come out of the water. It's
the
like,
same lake that's got Godzilla in it.
Yeah, exactly. And the same mountain that had either the same Rodan or a different Rodan in there.
And
like, oh, yeah, we know where he is. Kaboom! Zap! Wah, 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 and then they got him. And then that's it. Yeah, so then they have like some stupid ass piece of cord where the guy shows up in his cool Devo outfit. All these guys wear Devo outfits with the
narrow glasses, black. They all wear the same gear.
Plastic leather, pointy stuff sticking out of their shoulders, and crazy. They're alien. So Obviously, it ends up being like a double cross. They fly. They take the Asian and American guy, and then like another guy with them
Yeah,
back.
they send 2 other ships to grab Godzilla and Rodan.
And they go back to Planet X. Here's your cure, and it's like on microfiche or like
It's on reel-to-reel tape.
the reel-to-reel tape because that's how advanced the civilization is.
Because you can't write down a formula on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, we studied your ship and we recreated it, but we made it better, so it only takes 4 hours to fly back.
As opposed to the 8, which was such a drag when you fly back from Jupiter.
Totally, man. So that's what happens. They Rodan and Godzilla take care of King Ghidorah. Godzilla does his dance, the safety dance.
This is a little Godzilla safety dance. They even say he's like rejoicing.
Yeah, and then because of that, that's when they get the cure for cancer and boot it back to Earth. Of course, when they show up, the tape says, "Oh, by the way, we're actually taking over your planet," because they needed the guys not for King Ghidorah, but the planet is out of water and they want to colonize Earth, so they're gonna
Water. And they basically they also wanted to take the 2 monsters to use against the Earth.
Yeah, so they bring all 3 of them to Earth. King Ghidorah, Rodan, and Godzilla are under control of these alien guys, and this is where I kind of get lost a little bit. The inventor guy gets suspicious somehow, and he starts following them around because, like, the owner of the toy company was a front for the Planet X aliens, like, home base on planet Earth, and they wanted, I guess, to burn. I remember him burning like the plans for this noisemaker toy, and like
They figured out this inventor had this noisemaker toy that could be used against them, so they bought it under the guise of a toy company in order to make sure that it got destroyed and never was used. And they weren't going to pay him until they marketed it, so he kept bugging them to get money for his invention, and why aren't they using it, what are they going to use it for? And so he keeps hounding them, and he follows somebody back to their lair, and they throw him in a cell, and the American guy kind of catches on, they throw him in the cell, and somehow they piece together that the cell is soundproof.
yeah.
Like, they flick the bars and no sound happens, and they're like, oh, well, I wonder if it's because of my little device, and it looks like a doorbell he carries in his pocket, and he fires that up, and it jacks shit up, and
Yeah, so the aliens show up, they destroy that cool spaceship that they made, they release the monsters, and they're just all like, hey, it's us now. So meanwhile, scientists are trying to devise a plan. And like somehow the inventor guy has one of those noisemakers on him or something. Or no, the lady gives him, right?
I don't think the lady gave it to him. She gave him a note that said that sound can mess up her people. The American guy was kind of dating one of the Planet X people, and but she fell in love with him. You know that one.
And then she got sapped because she got discovered.
The Planet X people didn't like her connection with the American guy, so they zapped her and eradicated her. And then she gave him a note that said sound does stuff. The guy has the doorbell in his pocket. They use it to get out of the cell. Meanwhile, all 3 monsters are just tearing up stuff up top, and they know that they are controlling them by magnetic electricity somehow. I believe that's their science.
Yeah.
And, they think if they can find a way to block the magnetic frequency, then the monsters will come to their senses.
But then what ends up happening is that that noisemaker toy helped those 2 guys escape, and then they show back up where the scientists are devising this, and the American's like, no, this guy's thing's better, let's do that.
And so they do that, and it jacks up the aliens themselves. Meanwhile, the monsters really aren't affected by it.
Well, they are. They lose control. They have the cool like miniature toy things with the big egregious rocket looking.
That was the magnetic field blocker, but they couldn't get them out because the aliens were destroying all the moving vehicles because they knew they were going to try to do something. So they hit them in a cave, they hit them in a tunnel until the noisemaker worked, and then they brought those babies out and fired them up.
Yeah, okay.
And then combo.
And then, of course, Rodan and Godzilla fight King Ghidorah.
And they put the hurt on him and whomp him up a little bit. Then he flies off.
Well, hold on. You forget the most important thing.
Oh, wait.
They all fall into the sea.
There we go. They all group tackle off a cliff into the ocean. Bubble, bubble, bubble. King Ghidorah pops up, flies away. Everybody's like, "Are they dead?" And they're like, "Well, probably not. They're strong."
It's Miller time. By the way, you guys are going back to Planet X to be ambassadors. Like, what?
That's the other thing. Is like, well, it's time for a vacation. Like, not you. You're going to Planet X. It's like, what?
Oh man. Yeah, it's like, hey, buckle up. We got quite a ride.
Well, it's only a 4-hour jaunt, so.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was they just like if they go off a cliff, you know the movie's almost over. So.
If they end into the water, you know the movie's almost over.
And then it's like, "Oh, you think Godzilla and Rodan live?" And they're like, "Yeah, probably." And then, the end.
The end. What do you think?
Sorry, he's just all over the place today.
I don't really remember ever watching. I've seen Godzilla vs. Mothra before. I've seen Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster before. I don't think I've ever seen Invasion of the Astro Monster or Monster Zero.
Ghidorah. I don't know that I've seen. Those aliens look oddly familiar to me. Planet X people. But,
they look oddly goofy.
Well, no, they look stupid, but I think I've seen those stupid aliens somewhere else. It might be that Gamera had a movie with stupid aliens dressed in the same and behaving in such a fashion.
Well, and that's what we're not going to touch on. Just to be clear, like this is all got movies with Godzilla in, and like I talked about Rodan and where Rodan came from. I don't think there's ever been a movie where Gamera and Godzilla are in it. There might be. We might see it later on in All Monsters.
I don't think Gamera and Godzilla cross paths.
Yeah.
Gamera is more like a space turtle. But
yeah, but we won't talk. We're not doing any of those. So that's our slate of 3 movies. So whereas like the first 3 were all like introduction, cashing in on the fame, and then wrestling match, mixing, matching, dream matchups. This one is like magic and space, and then whatever the hell other, just go buck wild.
And then at the end, we'll have the monsters fight again, and it'll work.
And fall into the sea.
And the one thing I would note about this is there is a sad part in it. When when Godzilla does his happy dance after he beats the three-headed monster for the first time on Planet X, they send the astronauts back, and then like one of the astronauts like they look kind of sad that we're leaving them here.
Yeah, that's right. They're all like waving their arms, they're like, come back.
It's like, hey, we just want to fight. Let's have a lift.
Like, yeah,
I felt kind of bad. It was like somebody leaving their dogs behind in the country.
I know, right?
And like maybe Godzilla wasn't doing anything. He was at the bottom of the lake. Just let him go back to the lake.
He just wants his lake. Give him his lake. There's no water on this planet.
What am I supposed to do? I can't kick rocks and throw them all day.
I can't do the safety Godzilla dance.
And sometimes I think that like when he fights with Rodan and Mothra and any of these, it's like they kind of is like when they team up, it's kind of like, oh, I'm gonna throw a punch at the bad monster, but if I accidentally hit you in the face, okay.
It's professional wrestling.
Every time there's a flying monster, you can tell Godzilla's just like, God, not another flying thing.
So that's this set of movies. It is all bets are off now at this point. They can pretty much conjure anything up out of the air.
And based on the titles coming up, I think they are.
So. Yeah, I mean, where do you go next after this? You get your magic, mysticism, you get your space, and then you get this crazy space, like times 30 like fight. And one thing I'll give Astro Monster, and I didn't see the box art for it, but I was genuinely surprised that it was King Ghidorah again. So, like, that's the second straight movie in a row this thing showed up. Now, I don't know if he shows up. He'll show up later on.
They'll probably heard from him for a little bit.
You'll see him here in the next slate of movies, actually. So what do we have coming up? We talked about how the monsters fall into the sea all the time. Well, either someone caught wind of that and they're like, okay, well, let's make a sea monster. So we got Godzilla versus the sea monster. We have Son of Godzilla, which is going to be curious.
And
I'm not sure. If you haven't seen it, Tim, you might want to buckle down for that one. It might be a little rough. And then, of course, it redeems itself with Destroy All Monsters.
Ah, yes, I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes, that'll bring out some of the players that we've seen. Pretty much all of the players that we've seen.
I think it's a big all-out monster fest in that one. So as these three that we just watched, how do you rank them?
That's a good question. The fighting I like the best in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Mothra versus Godzilla, saw the first, appearance of Mothra, but I didn't like the ending. I didn't like it was. When I think Mothra, I think flying bug. I don't think larvae shooting silk. So, and then Evasion of Astro Monster, Monster Zero was just insane, crazy. There was enough fights. I think there were more fights in that than maybe Mothra versus Godzilla. So I'm gonna rank it: Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Monster Zero, and then Mothra versus Godzilla. Although I'll say that all three of those movies are better than Godzilla Raids Again and King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah.
Just because Mothra versus Godzilla is third doesn't mean it's on my poop list. These are all pretty solid Godzilla movies, and it really established the fact that you could expect a Godzilla movie every year in Japan. This really pushed it in full steam ahead. So these are three solid movies, and I like Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster the best out of all of them. What did you like? How'd you rate these three?
I probably liked Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster the best because you had a triple team up of Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla versus him, and I'd say that was number one. Then I liked all three of them, but I'll say the second one would be Mothra versus Godzilla, and then Godzilla versus Monster Zero.
Was it the Godzilla taunting dance that knocked down that movie for you?
No, I like the dance. I did love the dance. That was a great point in that movie. I liked also when there was a couple of times when he was fighting Ghidorah. I don't remember which one it was in, but he would shoot lightning at Godzilla's feet, and he'd do the Old West dance.
Oh God! He shot him in the ass, and he hit his ass.
First he shoots him by the feet. He dances. He shoots him in the gut, and Godzilla's like, "Ah, damn it!" And then he turns around to run away because his gut's burning. And he shoots him right in the ass, and he starts fanning his butt.
I know, it's oh, come on.
but the hot feet was great. I love that.
Yeah. All right, and with that, we're gonna end it for this week. Again, next week, hey, if anybody wants to follow along at home, it's Godzilla vs. She-Monster, Son of Godzilla, and Destroy All Monsters. It was fun. Hopefully, the auto switching for the Hangouts work. If it doesn't,
you're staring at one of our faces.
Focus on me the whole time or something. I don't know. Yeah, it all works out in the end. So I guess until next time, we'll see y'all later.
See you later.